Hello, hope everyone's doing well, and welcome back to Warship Wednesday. We have a special edition this time because the Azur 5th anniversary happened recently, as of this recording, and it took place on the USS Hornet CV-12. And so I put a poll up for viewers to decide: do Flandra from PR6 or do Hornet? And the people chose Hornet, so here we are. So, USS Hornet, as I said, CV-12, was an Essex-class aircraft carrier, served in the U.S. Navy during World War II, and well beyond that. And for this, we'll be talking about this for Azur Hornet 2, the second one. So the one that came out during the Yorktown 2 event, Mirror and Volation. We will be mentioning the Yorktown-class Hornet, so CV-8, although she won't be as the focus. So we mention, not the focus. So, when CV-12's life started, she was laid down. She wasn't actually called Hornet. She was called the USS Kearsarge, named after the Civil Warship that sunk the CSS Alabama. However, shortly after she was laid down, CV-8, the previous Hornet, was sunk in the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands, and this was late October 1942, and so she was renamed in honor of the crew and the ship. This would make her the 8th ship in the U.S. Navy to bear the name Hornet. And they got the name for the Hornet after an insect. They had first Hornet in the Revolutionary War period, along with Wasp, and they would, you can see this in the museum, they would refer to them as they would sting the British Navy, cause them problems. Now, fortunately, she had a much longer service history than her predecessor, CV-8, and she attacked many of the Japanese installations all throughout the South Pacific, along with the Philippines, Marianas, and she participated in the Mariana and Palau Islands campaigns, including many of the following operations, which means she was there for the Battle of the Philippine Sea, aka the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, which got that name because there were so many Japanese planes being shot down with ease, like it was nothing. And so there was a sailor that made a remark, or this is alleged, that wow, it's just like an old fashioned turkey shoot back home, just bang, 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 taking them out one after the other. And after that, she had some more operations on the way towards mainland Japan. However, she was badly damaged in a typhoon that took off part of her flight deck. I'll have a picture up. And this was in June 1945, and so she was first forced to return home to the U.S. for repairs, and she was there until after the surrender. And after the war, she participated in Operation Magic Carpet, which brought many U.S. service members home from far-flung reaches of the world, and she was decommissioned for the first time in 1946. So she fulfilled her role. They said, okay, there's nothing crazy going on right now. We'll put her in the mothball fleet. However, it would not be long for crazy stuff would happen again. So when the Korean War kicked off, she was reactivated, but she spent most of the time being modernized. So she could use these new fancy contraptions, made of them called jets. And so her elevator and various facilities were made larger so they could handle these jets, and they also had more advanced catapults installed on her. However, she was modernized again in 1956 when she was turned to a specialized anti-submarine carrier. So she would have a different designation than just CV. And this is where she has her angled flight deck installed. So if you go to the museum ship now, you notice that, hey, this is not a straight line. There's a part that goes off to the side, and that is the angled portion of the flight deck. And so they could have planes launching and landing at the same time without so it reduces the risk of them colliding. Made her much more capable for that role. And she ended up playing a small role in the Vietnam War. For the most part, her most notable actions after the end of World War II were about to occur. And this is because she aided in the recovery of several of the Apollo missions' craft and crew. So when they were testing some of the shuttle components and the command modules and all that stuff, she would go help recover it. And then her most famous claim to fame for this period of her life was recovering the Apollo 11 crew. This is Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin. And so when their command module landed in the sea, she went and picked him up. And because there was a big concern that there was some kind of unknown virus or disease hiding on the moon, and that Neil Armstrong and Michael and Buzz were all going to bring them back and infect everyone, and it would be a catastrophe, they were placed in a special sealed airstream to be quarantined. That way, hopefully, all the nastiness would die off. There's a photo of Richard Nixon coming to visit them at this time. So yeah, that was her most famous part after her wartime service in World War II. And shortly after this, she was just decommissioned for the final time in 19 1970. And in 1998, she was opened as a museum ship in Alameda, California, where she's been open to the public to this day. She still houses many artifacts from across her service history, including many of the same model of planes and helicopters that she had aboard her during her various points of service. I'm not sure if they're the exact same plane, like, okay, this one was there, or it's a newer model that the Navy had no more use for and they brought on. But yeah, there's many replicas of the planes. I shouldn't say replicas, but there's the same planes and the same helicopters. And when you look at these flying objects, you always see them in the sky, the way of distance, and they seem kind of small. And you don't get a real gauge on how big they are until you're standing right beside one. I'll have a photo of the Avenger torpedo bomber that is there towards the stern of the ship, and that plane is massive, and the torpedo it has on it is massive. So it's a very cool museum to go see. I highly recommend it. What else do they have in there? A lot of the lower deck stuff. So a lot of the crew's quarters, the captain's quarters, the munitions shop, the kitchen is still there. The ice cream machine is apparently still there. I could not access the area during my most recent visit, so I cannot confirm at this time, but I've heard it is there, so you can go see the ice cream machine, because you know about U.S. Navy ships. U.S. Navy sailors really like ice cream, because there was no alcohol, so they had to have something. And the sick bay is there. They also have a whole section of the ship that is dedicated to not only Hornet herself, but also all of her sister ships. So this is all the Essex class. So there's little rooms that are sectioned off of, okay, here is Essex, here's Intrepid, here is Bunker Hill, here is Ticonderoga, here is Orkansky, here is Richard von Baum, all of that goodness. So you can see models of them, figures of them, and just various other parts, from World War II. And also a little fun tidbit is that allegedly she's haunted. So apparently there's been a ton of people who have had supernatural encounters on her overnight. And so this earned her the nickname the Gray Ghost because, as you see in the many photos I'll have up on screen, she has a gray color scheme and she's haunted. So yeah, and that will fall over into some of our other stuff we're going to talk about. That's her history section. We go to her skills and quotes and what they kind of reference. So Hornet sting, her first skill, obviously makes sense. Hornets have stingers and they'll sting you if you step on their nest or get too close. And then flying ace is her second skill. This is because she participated in the Great Mariner's Turkey Shoot. She shot down in a godly amount of planes. She ended up being second only to Essex, with Hornet shooting down 1,410 was the amount on the source I got. That's throughout the course of her time in the war, which is, 43 to early 45. So that's not a terrible amount of time to be doing it, but that's very efficient. And I believe it was at the Mariner's Turkey Shoot that 10 of her pilots obtained the ace in a day status. So a certain amount of kills you get, you become an ace. And by the end of the war, 30 of her 42 Hellcat pilots had obtained ace status. So very proficient fighters. And her last skill, the Dancing Gray Ghost, I'm not sure where the dancing part comes from. I couldn't find anything to reference that too much. But the Gray Ghost section, I couldn't find anything from her service history that she was called that. It's like Enterprise was called the Gray Ghost because the Japanese kept thinking they had sunk her, but she was still alive and she still kept causing the problems. But it's what I've seen, the most likely reason for this name is that, like I said earlier, her gray color scheme and the fact that she is allegedly haunted. I've not stayed overnight at her, so I cannot attest to this. Not that I don't believe in ghosts, but just, have to have some kind of weird encounter for me to say, okay, yeah, I believe him. I'm sure there was something that happened. So yeah, that is her skills and what they reference. And then her quote references in her acquisition line, once again, referencing the Grey Ghost, calls herself the Grey Ghost Hornet, everyone's been talking about. She's a pretty popular museum ship, and then she has the Grey Ghost nickname, because as previously stated, color scheme, haunted, there we go. And then her mail line, she says, mail brought to you by the Magic Carpet Express, something along those lines. And it's because she participated in Operation Magic Carpet. So yeah, that was the USS Hornet. Like I said, she is a museum ship, so you can go see her. She is open most of the year. She's located in Alameda, California. So that is on the east side of the San Francisco Bay. There's a ferry station not far from her, so if you land at the SFO airport or somewhere else in the Bay Area, you can take the ferry over to her. And yeah, and I'd highly recommend going if you have the opportunity to. It's a very cool experience. They have guided tours. You can do it self-guided. If you want to go up in the tower, it's a guided tour. And it's extra cost. But the staff is very friendly, very helpful. If you're just wandering around and they see you, they'll say, hey, you have any questions? Are you interested in, whatever you're looking at? Good service. And also, they also host CarrierCon. And that is towards the end of March this year, 2023. I believe it was March 26th. So yeah, they also host that. And that's They had Azur Lane there for the most recent one. They also have some World of Warships sections, and they have a bunch of history stuff, and they have military recruiters there and a bunch of different organizations for like veterans and all that stuff. So yeah, that's also a good time to go. Eventually meet some fellow fans and people who have similar interests to you. If you're watching this kind of video, I assume you like history to some degree. Yeah, it's a really cool experience. Once again, I recommend going if you have the opportunity to. And yeah, that's be all. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.